Hello, my name is Stevie Martin with the Avaya Serviceability Engineering team. This video will go into how to set up SSL for the AvayaLive Engage on-premise solution. The AvayaLive Engage on-premise solution installation guide that you use to install this software also contains a section on how to set up SSL for the environment. One thing you should note is a fresh installation of AvayaLive Engage OPS defaults to no encrypted traffic. Another document that's good to preview is administering AvayaLive Engage on-premise solution. This doc gives a good overview of the use and day-to-day operation of the environment. We use the AvayaLive Engage .NET application WA Web Service to configure our SSL. If you have any questions on the WA Web Service and how to use it and what it does, please refer to the YouTube video How to Access and Use AvayaLive Engage Release 3.0 Web Service on YouTube, Avaya Mentor. The Engage client on the end-user desktop has many components. Not all of those components can communicate directly using SSL. These components communicate with a proxy called the client proxy that allows them to be directed via port 443 to the AvayaLive Engage server for encryption. On the AvayaLive Engage server, you also have a proxy which is called a tunnel proxy and runs as a Windows service for Release 3.0 on. This proxy terminates SSL components from all sources and routes communication packets to the appropriate server-side components. The traffic that would get encrypted is 3D interaction traffic using user datagram protocol, HTTP traffic using transmission control protocol, media traffic using transmission control protocol, and voice traffic, which uses user datagram protocol with some TCP. Once we install the AvayaLive Engage on-premise solution and we're ready to configure SSL, we need to generate a certificate signing request using the WA Web Service tool on the desktop of AvayaLive Engage. You can access the certificate signing request in two ways. You can log directly into the WA Web Service WA interface page and scroll down to create certificate signing request, or you can access it directly by appending the tag OP equals create certificate signing request to the end of the HTTP string. Several items to note. Your FQDM must match exactly the fully qualified domain name of the server as the clients will see it. If they do not match, there will be SSL errors. The key size is the only thing on this screen that is optional, as it defaults to 2048. The other values are 512 and 1024. Once you've completed your entries, you select Invoke. If the method completed successfully, a web page opens with an XML response. True will indicate success, false indicates failure. If the method succeeds, the certificate signing request will be located at w:/web.alive/certs/certrequester.csr. The contents of the file would look something like this. Several items to note. If the method does fail, you can go into w:/web.alive logs for the most recent WA Web Service file. The cause failure will be the last entry at the bottom. You can only have one CSR in progress at a time. If you try to invoke the method a second time after success, it fails. The reason for this is there are a private key associated with the CSR waiting to be mated with the certificate that is returned from the certificate authority. If your submission to the certificate authority failed for whatever reason and you need to redo it, you need to delete the current in-progress certificate signing request. To do this, you go back into the web service page to delete certificate signing request and select Invoke. As with the creation of the certificate signing request, if it succeeded, the XML response will return a true. If it failed, it will return a false. You go into the logs directory and review the WA Web Service logs to see what the issue may have been. Note, this does delete the original private key and invalidates the original certificate signing request. You'll have to go in now and create another one. Once you have your certificate from the certificate authority, you need to place it on the AvayaLive Engage Environment desktop. you place it in w:/web.alive/search/new-cert.cer. Once you've done this, you go into your WA web service, the install certificate window, and you would click invoke. As for earlier running of the WA web service tools, if it succeeds, it returns a true. If it fails, it returns a false. And if you return a false, you want to check for your logs to see what the issue may be. There's a couple things to note. When you run invoke for this method, it restarts the tunnel proxy we discussed earlier, and so the users on the server could be disrupted. With this in mind, you should choose a time when activities in the environment are at a low level to do your installation. You can import certificates into AvayaLive Engage that have been exported from other places, but it's not described in this procedure for security reasons. Please contact your AvayaLive representative if you have any questions. You cannot export certificates from AvayaLive Engage in Release 3.0. Once you complete inserting your new certificate for AvayaLive Engage, your next step is go into the server configuration tool on the desktop and make some modifications. Prior to running the server configuration tool, go into services and verify that the tunnel proxy service restarted after installing the certificate. Once you verify that your tunnel proxy service is back up and running, you're ready to configure your subscription. First thing you should do is you should back up your W drive. Because once you have the certificate installed, if them private keys are lost due to a failure, they cannot be replaced. You have to get a new certificate. Once we've started up the Engage Server Configuration tool, the first thing we need to do is change the web service schema from HTTP to HTTPS. Next, we have to change the AvayaLive help URL from HTTP to HTTPS. Our next step is change the image service base URL from HTTP to HTTPS. No, we do not change the AvayaLive web service URL, as this is only accessed locally. And we don't change the proxy test URL. This is just an external URL used to test connectivity. In your next step, you would click on Configure Server. And then you would click on Configure Subscription. Always ensure that you select Configure Server first. As you can see in our example here, the configuration failed. So the next step would be to understand what happened. Once you've taken the steps to verify if there's any access issues, you try to configure the server and configure subscription a second time. When we selected Configure Subscription to complete the installation of the SSL certificate, we got a message that it failed. Selecting Yes to view the log took us to the log as shown in front of you right now. There are several things to note about this log, and it's a good example of the issues you can run into. This log is a warning. OpenSSL only needs a CNF file if it's acting as a certificate authority, which in this case it will not be. These logs are simply output from the OpenSSL command and are redirected into this particular log file. So what you're seeing here for this particular issue is actually irrelevant. What you want to look at is when you install the certificates at 9:28 in this example. You want to go into other logs to try to determine if there's some sort of issue that may have caused the failure. One of the places you want to look is the tunnel proxy logs, where you might see the certificate you configured is in the wrong format, which can be a common problem with installing SSL certificates. If you don't see no subsequent logs, then something is probably wrong for your web server. One possible issue is the web application pools that you can see in IIS Manager may be configured for the wrong version of ASP.NET. Another possible issue is that your web server was misconfigured on installation. In both cases, it's something you want to talk to your Avaya representative about to determine what the issue may be. At this time, you've encrypted all HTTP traffic over SSL and all voice traffic over secure RTP. But your other traffic types haven't been encrypted yet. If you want to encrypt all the traffic type that we mentioned earlier, you need to take one additional step. You need to go into the AvayaLive Engage Administration panel, scroll down to Settings, and select Encrypt All User Traffic. Once you've done this, all traffic will be via the secure port 443, and it's not mandatory, but if you want to, you can go into your firewall on your server now and close the other AvayaLive Engage ports that were open during install. If you go to full encrypted traffic over SSL, it can affect your traffic performance. Unless your network conditions are ideal, it will often cause a reduction of voice quality. You should talk to your IT department prior to making this final step to full encryption. Also, one last item to note, if you set up redirect for your URL, after turning on HTTPS, you will have to go back in and regenerate the redirect. Thank you for your time today. We welcome comments, questions, and feedback at mentor@avaya.com or on Twitter at AvayaMentor. For more details or related information, please visit support.avaya.com. Thank you for choosing Avaya.